Gentiles. Tell them to prepare for war. Pick it up at verse number 25. What's going to happen?
And there shall be signs in the sun, and in the moon, and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations, with perplexity, the sea and the waves roar.
Jesus is letting them know the event that's going to take place, that's going to signify the end of the world. That's going to signify the end of the rule of the Gentiles. It's also signifying the time that he is going to redeem his people, Israel. Go ahead.
Men's heart failing them for fear, and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the heavens shall be shaken.
Because people, look, no matter if you got some understanding and you're living at this time, it's going to be enough to shake you. But just imagine if you have no understanding whatsoever. You walking around thinking that God's going to rapture somebody off to heaven somewhere. Have no clue as to what God, the God of this Bible, what his will is, what his intentions are, what his objective is, and how he is going to bring it all to pass. Can you imagine the mindset of how people are going to be shaken up when they see this? When you look at the devastation, like I say, that just took place in Haiti not too long ago. When you look at what's going on in Japan, what the Lord is talking about is even far, far, far more worse. And if you don't have any understanding, he says, and man's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Go ahead.
And then shall they see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory. And when these things begin to come to pass,
then he's telling them to do what?
Then look up and lift up your head.
And why is that?
For your redemption draweth nigh.
He said, when you look up and see this, understand that your time of redemption is at hand. Turn over to Isaiah, the 27th chapter. Because Jesus is going to gather his people, Israel. Because didn't Joel say that he's going to bring again the captivity of his people? And this is the time when it's going to take place. Because Jesus said he's going to send his angels with the sound of a trumpet and gather his elect from the four winds of heaven. Did he not? Now I'm talking about heaven up there where he's at. He's talking about on this earth. From the east, from the west, from the north, from the south. Israel was scattered in the captivity amongst all the nations of the world. 27 and verse number 12. Because he said, when you see these things take place, look up and know that your redemption draweth nigh. 27 and 12, and go ahead, because it is time for redemption. It is time for the recovery of God's people. Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall beat off from the channel of the river unto the stream of Egypt. And ye shall be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel.
Go ahead.
And it shall come to pass in that day.
What's going to happen?
That the great trumpet shall be blown. They shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria.
Go ahead.
And the outcast in the land of Egypt. And shall worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem.
Notice what it said. It says it's going to come to pass in that day. So you're going to be gathered one by one, O ye children of Israel. He says it's going to come to pass in that day that the great trumpet shall be blown. And they shall come which were ready to perish in the land of Assyria, and the outcasts in the land of Egypt. And they're going to worship the Lord in the holy mount at Jerusalem. Because that's where God's going to be headquartered at. He's going to rule this world, but he's going to be headquartered in Jerusalem. Is that not what Gabriel told Mary when he told her about the fact that she was going to give birth? And that he was going to be the son of the highest. And he was going to give him the throne of his father David. And he was going to rule over the house of Jacob forever. David's throne is not in heaven. David was the king of Israel. His throne was in Jerusalem. And that is the throne that Jesus is going to sit upon. He's going to rule here on this earth. But for any king, all kings need subjects. And he's going to recover his people, Israel. Turn to Psalms 107. Just as the Lord had Israel scattered into slavery all over the world, he's going to gather them. Psalms 107 verse number 1. Go ahead when you get there.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good. For his mercy endureth forever.
Go ahead.
Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he hath redeemed from the hand of the enemy.
Now, he's speaking here as if this has already been done. And God has spoken it. His promise must come to pass. Just like all of the destruction that we've been reading about that is to come on this world, that must occur. But this also must take place. God is going to redeem his people. He said, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endured forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he had redeemed from the hand of the enemy. Go ahead.
And gathered them out of the lands from the east and from the west, from the north and from the south. From
all the nations whether he had scattered them. Go ahead. I'm sorry, he said he gathered them out of the lands from the east and the west, from the north and from the south. Turn over to Zechariah. And this is it. Because he said they were going to come and worship him in his holy mountain. Did they not? Zechariah 14. Because I said the day of the Lord is a time of wrath, and judgment, redemption, and it's a time of rain. 14 and 9. Go ahead.
And the Lord shall be king over all the earth. In that day shall there be one Lord, and his name one.
It said, and the Lord is going to be king over the whole earth. He said, in that day there shall be one Lord, and his name one. Everybody is going to know about the true and living God at this time. When the Lord manifests himself, when he reveals himself to man, everybody is going to know again the true and living God. What did Pharaoh tell Moses when he came to him and told him about God told him to let his people go? He said, I know not this God. Well, that's how people, that's what they are demonstrating to God now when they refuse to obey him. They say, I know not this God. They're not following the God of this Bible. They're following some false God that some man has concocted, because the God of this Bible issued laws and statutes and commandments that were to be kept perpetually, ongoing. And when he comes and brings his destruction because of man's refusal to obey his commandments, then everybody is going to know him. And they're going to rid themselves of these false gods. He's going to be king over the earth. There's going to be one Lord, and his name one. Drop down to 16 and go ahead.
And it shall come to pass,
what?
That everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
They're not going to be dealing with these holidays at this time. Men don't understand what you have to keep is God's holy days. They're the ones that God sanctioned. They are the ones that God gave unto man to follow. He said, and it shall come to pass that everyone that is left of all the nations which came against Jerusalem shall even go up from year to year to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles. Go ahead.
And it shall be,
What?
And whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King.
And why are they going up to Jerusalem to worship the King? Because that's where Jesus is going to be at. Headquartered in Jerusalem. Saying it shall be that whosoever will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King. Go ahead.
The Lord of hosts.
What is he going to do?
Even upon them shall be no rain.
Look here. And if it don't rain, you can't have no crop. You don't have no crop, you can't grow no food. Ain't got no food, you can't eat. You don't eat, you gonna die. And that is, the day of the Lord is a time of wrath, judgment, redemption, and rain. I want to thank you for the time.
The same was in the beginning with God. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning with God. In the beginning was the same as in the beginning with God, and the Word was